Hello. Welcome back to the channel. In this episode, people share their creepiest cursed item or place stories. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. I'm not usually someone who believes in ghosts, bad luck, fate, and that sort of stuff, but one year I put up a plastic Christmas tree. Hey, I've just realized this is a good story for this time of year. It looked good and fit nicely in the corner of the flat. My housemates and cat enjoyed it, so we decided to keep it up. In January, we took all the decorations off, and it looked a bit bare, so in February, we decorated it with Valentine's stuff. Hearts, feather bowers, and some crap heart-shaped candy. The boiler broke in February too, but I thought nothing of it. March came along, and Easter stuff started to come into shops, so we took off the Valentine's stuff and decked it out with little yellow chicks and some multicolored eggs. It looked great. We started to get a leak that destroyed the TV. In April, we added more Easter stuff and slowly transitioned to more of a multicolored assortment of tacky crap we'd pick up in pound shops. The ceiling collapsed, a window fell out, a radiator burst, and a kitchen cupboard fell off the wall. I put two and two together and really started to believe in the idea that leaving the Christmas tree up for too long is bad luck. We took down the tree and put it in the shed. The shed door got kicked in a few days later, and someone stole the tree. I wonder how they're doing now. When I was a kid, I owned a plain black tank top that I thought was cursed. Something bad happened every single time I wore it, from the day I received it to the day I donated it. I would either get a drink spilled on me, fail a test that I'd spent hours studying for, twist my ankle while running, get a huge pimple, or something else. One day, I felt a bit afraid, pulling on the tank top. I kept telling myself that it's just a tank top, all the bad things that always happened to me when I wore it must have been unfortunate coincidences. But when I got into my mom's car to go somewhere, a bee that had been trapped in the car attacked me, somehow got underneath the tank top, and stung me about 7 times on my back before I shook the bee loose and got it out of the car. I had a slight allergic reaction to the stings, they swelled up and were painful for days. I got rid of the tank top after that. My mom had a red Camaro. Yes, Christine, jokes were made, that was literally cursed. Someone crossed 3 lanes of traffic and hit her while she was driving. She fixes it. Someone else driving the wrong way down a one-way street hits her dead on. She gets it fixed again. Her sister borrows it, parks it outside a 7-Eleven, and a garbage truck backs into it, smashing the whole back end. She gets it fixed again. Mind you, this is the 3rd time in 6 months. Driving it home from the shop, someone runs a red light and smashes into the side of it. She gives up and sells it to a friend. The friend takes it into a car wash, the car wash malfunctions, and the whole front end gets crushed or partially impaled by a piece of machinery. A friend wins a lawsuit and scraps the car, ending the cycle. More of a one-off thing, but a few years ago, my parents were looking for a bigger house. My mom went to look at a house and ended up really liking it. The house was older but had a lot of nice features, like a pool and a home theater. So she asks me and my dad to come take a look. My dad walks into this house and immediately hates it. It has a super odd vibe and feels really unsettled. I'm not getting the same vibe but suddenly get super nauseous and end up puking in the backyard literally out of nowhere. Mom thinks that we're being dramatic, but I refuse to go back inside that house. Long story short, we didn't buy it but purchased it in the neighborhood, and I go out of my way to not drive past it. In the years since, like 5 to 6 families have been moving in and out of that house. It's weirdly cheap for the neighborhood. I'm convinced there's some weird shit going on in that place. One evening, I was walking home from work and noticed someone's belongings in their driveway. On a bookshelf, read a sign saying something like "free to a good home." I enjoy sewing, and these people had left some antique sewing machines out, which intrigued me. As I was looking at them and wondering why the owner just didn't try to sell them, a man approached me and stated that he had noticed my interest in the sewing machines. He told me that their landlord had sold their house and that they only had a couple of weeks before they had to move out, so they were giving their possessions away for free to get rid of them quickly, ready for the move. I ended up chatting with his wife after him. She told me that she was a pagan and that she liked sewing. We talked about sewing for a while, and the next thing I know, I am being given a tailor's mannequin, a vintage hotel busboy style outfit, and 2 antique sewing machines. They were bundled into the man's car and then taken around the corner to my house. My mom wasn't happy with the situation. The sewing machines ended up in the attic, then were taken to a charity shop, the busboy outfit went out in the trash, and the mannequin was put in my bedroom. Not long after the mannequin had been given its new home in my bedroom, I noticed a terrible stench of stale urine and sulfur on several occasions. My room had no reason to smell like that, So the only thing that I could think of was that the most likely cause was the mannequin, as it joined just as the smell had started. I then started getting bad feelings in my gut when going near the mannequin, and then the horrific nightmares began. I have never experienced nightmares that terrifying before. About 2 weeks later, I couldn't cope anymore, so I took the mannequin apart and put it in the bin. I stopped having the nightmares immediately, and the smell of stale urine and sulfur disappeared and has never returned. Actually, neither item nor place it's a cursed person story. A little over a year ago, I stayed in a hostel for a night. I got a bed and a room for 6 but was the only guest. I had classes the next day, so I went to bed early. Around midnight, I heard someone at the door trying to get in but having problems with their key card, so I got up to open it from the inside. I let in a middle-aged woman who immediately went to bed too. Some hours later, I woke up to her talking in her sleep. She said, "Please refrain from this mayhem immediately," which I thought was a very funny thing to say in one's sleep. I mentally put it down on my list next to tomorrow morning I'll bathe in the Baltic Sea and blueberry cake and tried to fall asleep again, but then she started screaming, as if something was actually hurting her. She begged to make it stop, cried that it wasn't her fault, blamed it on someone else, then fell into a heartbreaking whimper. Next time I woke up, she was doing the same scream as if in pain thing again, but this time standing up right next to my bed. She walked around the room some more, one time even leaving it and putting a shoe in the door so she could get back in. When I woke up in the morning, she was in her own bed as if nothing had happened, looking tired but otherwise normal. She asked me what time it was, and I asked her if she was all right. Said yes. I even told the receptionist about it, but what was I supposed to say? I think my roommate is possessed? There's a place in my neighborhood that appears simultaneously cursed and blessed, if that's even possible. I live in a very industrialized area, but up until the time I was 11 years old, there was a small patch of vacant forested land in between a cemetery and a baseball field. Some of the oaks there were several hundred years old. This woodlot was known as an important stopover for migratory songbirds and a refuge for other kinds of wildlife. Many children enjoyed exploring back there, catching salamanders and snakes, playing in an old burned-out car, and building treehouses out of plywood. There were also reports of young explorers uncovering prehistoric arrowheads and pottery sherds. Eventually, a company purchased the vacant land and destroyed most of it to build an office park. Local environmentalists objected, but the people with money ultimately won. It was horrible to see so much pristine habitat destroyed. There was still a small stand of trees remaining, but most of the wildlife of my youth had disappeared. Then, just a few years ago, I started seeing all kinds of animals showing up in the adjacent cemetery. Wild turkey, deer, screech owls, garter snakes and brown snakes, blue-spotted salamanders, raccoons, mink, white-footed mice, foxes, coyotes, hawks, and even hummingbirds began to return. The coyotes, in particular, have returned in staggering numbers. Inspired by this resurgence of nature, I began returning to some of the vacant land around the cemetery and replanting it with native vegetation. In particular, there is a huge old hollowed-out oak tree that feels both ominous and sacred. Every time I pass that tree, it is covered in dozens of screaming crows, all gathered and watching intently. They never perch elsewhere. In autumn, it gives me chills to see and hear them all crying up in the spindly branches. Because the land is now open and exposed, the site is also exceptionally windy. This creates a slight chill even in midsummer, adding to the eeriness. Again, those old woods are mostly gone now, but any time I stand where they used to be, I feel that I am in the presence of something ancient, powerful, and possibly vengeful. I'm pretty sure Stephen King has a curse on me. When I was around 15, my dad's girlfriend got me Stephen King's book on writing, and I never wanted to read it. I have a complicated history with him and his books, so it sat on a shelf for years. In my early 20s, we had a going-away bonfire in the woods for a friend of mine, and we all brought things to toss in the pyre, and I tossed in that book. That was about 10 years ago, and I've gotten the book as a gift almost every year since. I think I'm up to 8 times past the first. I just got it for my birthday last June. I'm not burning them, but I give them away constantly. I think burning the first one put some sort of curse on me. I'm curious to see how it's going to play out, 'cause I'm not reading your stupid book, Stephen. One of my best friends gave me a pocket knife that I really loved. It looked nice and just felt right in my hands. It never left my pocket unless I was using it. A couple years later, my friend passed away at the age of 26. A couple years after he passed away, I went on a week-long backpack trip in northern Michigan with another friend. On the third night, I set up my tent and then realized my knife was not in my pocket. I looked through all of my gear, trying to locate it, but to no avail. In a last desperate attempt to find it, I decided to look in my tent, even though I had not put any of my gear in the tent yet and there should be no reason for my knife to be in it. I unzipped the door, and there it was. Right in the middle of the tent floor. I have no idea how it got there. I was so happy to have my knife back. An hour later, the knife disappeared again. We hadn't gone anywhere, there was no way the knife could have gone far from my tent. I never saw that knife again. Rest in peace, Charlie. I love you, man. I don't believe in ghosts or anything supernatural in any shape or form. One day I was out with a few friends at night with not a lot to do, so we went for a stroll. It was pitch black with a full moon, and as we approached an old abandoned barn we decided to have a look inside. Immediately after hopping the gate there was one illuminated circle from the moonlight on the courtyard about the size of a medicine ball. It was bright enough my eyes were drawn straight to it, and right in the middle was a cross. Like a holy cross. At this point my mate was right over my shoulder and had seen me frozen solid and then clocked the cross as well. We both looked at each other and hopped back over the gate as fast as we could. Still sends a shiver down my spine thinking about it. Years ago, I bought tickets to see Kings of Leon during a summer tour at an outdoor venue. Shortly after the tour started, it was cancelled. The lead singer couldn't stay sober long enough to perform. Ticketmaster refunds the money, no big deal. A few years go by and there is a huge Ticketmaster lawsuit, and I get a shitton of free ticket vouchers as payment. I used a set of tickets to see Linkin Park 2 summers ago, at the same venue as the aforementioned Cole show. A week later, the lead singer kills himself. Ticketmaster returns the ticket vouchers for me. I bought tickets to see Kings of Leon in the same area. My husband and I go to dinner before the show, but I get food poisoning and have to sell the tickets at the last minute. This past summer, I used vouchers to get tickets to see Avenged Sevenfold. Again, at the same outdoor venue I have been attempting to see shows at. A couple weeks later, the tour is cancelled for health reasons, and tickets are refunded. I am convinced of two things: I will never see Kings of Leon live, and the original tickets purchased are cursed. I mean, I don't know if this counts, but here goes. We have a clown doll on top of a shelf, and friends and family members keep claiming the doll head moves to look at them. And another thing is, there's a ghost or a demon that goes into rooms. I see it go into a room, BTW, it looks like another family member, and when I look in the room, there's nobody there, and my father claims that my sister playing that fake Bloody Mary game cursed my parents' house, even though the ghost has been here before she played that. In my hometown, there was a lovely variety shop. It had lots of booths, or little partitioned areas, so that folks could set up their own stalls of goods. Usually they carried antiques and second-hand stuff, but there was one that sold Wiccan stuff. I was looking for a belt knife for my Ren Fair outfit, and the Wiccan booth had a perfect one, so I got it. I had it for a few weeks, and it made my life miserable. Every time I was near it, I'd get bad headaches, get really irritable. I'm normally so chill, and have coordination issues. Lots of bad luck followed. When I realized it was the knife, I packed it up into the closet, and things eased a bit. The first chance I got, I gave it to my Wiccan friend to cleanse at the full moon. It never got cleansed. I have no idea what happened to it, but it was nice to get it out of my life. I still don't have a damn belt for my outfit. About 10 years ago, hubby and I were cruising a church-run thrift shop. There was this magnificent wooden statue of a naked woman. It's 4 feet tall, from either Bali or Borneo. It reminded me of a ship's figurehead in style. I feel in love but thought it would be far too expensive. It turned out to be $15. I bought it and hauled it home. Within days, shit started to get weird. Things seemed to be flinging themselves off shelves and getting knocked over. We start seeing this dark flash out of the corner of our eyes. It's unnerving, a real hassle, and very disruptive at the same time. After a few weeks of this, one night I had a strange dream. I dream of the statue. She tells me her name is Trembling Leaves, and she wants to be honored. She asks for flowers. The next day, I buy fabric flowers and leave them at her feet. All the activity stops dead. Even after this long, if these flowers get disturbed, all the activity restarts. Ever since I was little, anytime I noticed the number 214, something bad would happen. I made a point to avoid doing things at 214 just to prevent bad things from happening. This led to about a year ago, when I was explaining why 214 is cursed and evil to a group of my friends in a McDonald's and eventually crying hysterically because they didn't believe me. Later that day, my friend noticed the time was 2:14 and took a picture of their clock to send it to me as a joke. Their phone, however, would not send it at all, and their phone sent other messages fine. They ended up believing me and my anti-214 propaganda. I still think 214 is a cursed number to this day and am fully expecting to have something bad happen because I typed it out so many times. We had a mirror. I have no idea where we got it. It was fine before we moved. But when we moved from our first apartment, a friend who dropped it and cracked it ended up with prostate cancer. We moved it with the crack still in it and hung it up. Everything went wrong. I had a miscarriage, my husband lost his job, I got sick, and we decided to pack up and move. Yet again, everything went wrong. A miscarriage lost 3 family members. It was horrible. In the final place, we moved it and hung it up. We ended up being a cockroach motel, and yet again, everything went wrong. It was like bad luck kept following us. We got rid of that blasted mirror and half our roach-infested belongings. No problems, 6 years and counting. I am superstitious, but I haven't told anyone about that stupid mirror. It was bad luck, and nobody can convince me otherwise. I remember loving the Travis Tritt song It's a Great Day to Be Alive when I was younger. It reminded me of road trips with my dad. When I was in my early 20s and out on my own, every single time that damn song came on the radio, my day went to shit. I was flipping through stations on my way to work, and when it briefly came on, I couldn't help but sing along. Before the song was over, my car had overheated, and I was stuck for hours. The same thing happened, it came on while driving to work, and I ended up having the shittiest day and quit my job on the spot. I heard it while driving to pick up my boyfriend, and we got into the worst fight we'd ever had to this day, and we've been married now for over 5 years. Other smaller things would happen whenever I heard it out and about, but now I avoid it like the plague. I haven't heard it in probably 7 years or so. Good riddance. My high school girlfriend had a shitty life. We dated for 1.5 years, and out of that, only the first 4 months were actually good and enjoyable. In a span of only a month or two, her family got kicked out of their house by her grandparents, who owned it, and decided to sell it to buy an RV. Her dad lost his job, her mom admitted she was cheating after 20 plus years of marriage, and both parents became alcoholics. GF had this thing called a Zen garden, this cheap little wooden box filled with sand. It came with a rake and various items that, if moved, were supposed to cause change in your life, I guess. She became convinced this was the root of all of their problems. We were like 15 at the time. Me, being a guy, said, "Let's just smash the thing." She agreed. We took it out of her driveway, and I brought a cement block down on it. I was not ready for what happened next. These things shot up from it and started dancing around. It was like when you wave a sparkler around in the dark, except it was in daylight. These sparkling chains danced around in the air in front of us before whooshing back to the block and creating a final, blinding flash, and then they were gone. Over the next few weeks, her mom left the family permanently. This was a positive. They found a new house just up the road so her disabled younger brother wouldn't have to move schools. Her dad managed to get unemployment or some kind of benefit. He got his drinking under control, and he was a really good dad for the first time in his kids' lives. The good lasted about a year before dad found heroin. She ended up being a hardcore party girl, and I broke up with her after she'd cheated on me multiple times because she was finding somewhere to get high or drunk and fuck random people literally every night. She was 17. I still think that weird little trinket actually had some control over her family's life. Hijacking my so's story since he doesn't have a Reddit. His mom bought an old quilt at a flea market. It was a nice one, handmade, and dirt cheap. She put it in the guest bedroom, which was pretty much the dog's room at that time. They loved to go in there to play, nap, etc. As soon as the quilt was put in there, they stopped going in. They would stand in the doorway and growl or bark, something that's very out of character for both of them. Things would also fly off the shelves. You would put something up and then find it halfway across the room. Sometimes you could hear banging on the walls. One night, they had my so's grandmother over. She had a bad back, so he gave her his bed since it was a better mattress. He slept in the guest bedroom with a quilt. The next morning, he woke up completely covered in scratches. His mother eventually had a dream where her grandmother appeared by her bedside and woke her up. She told her, "Get rid of the quilt. You need to get rid of it now." The next morning, she woke up and threw it away. Stuff stopped flying off the walls, and dogs returned to normal. I have never had a problem since, though sometimes the antique radio turns on by itself. My childhood home was a funeral parlor. One day, when I was about 10, this beautiful, hand-carved, polished ivory chalice appeared in our pantry. It was exquisite. No one else in my family would touch it, so I kept it. The inside of the cup part was stained red or brown. It looked like old blood, not wine, and it would not come off. The stem was a merwoman or fairy carved to look like she was holding up the shell that formed the cup. When it first appeared, she was not smiling but not sad looking. After about a month, I kind of forgot about it and put it on a shelf in my room. I was a weird kid, lol. One day, it started moving. It would go from shelf to dresser, etc. I didn't actually think much of it at the time. Then our dog Charlie was put down, so I helped my dad dig a grave under the peach tree. I hit something hard with a shovel, so my dad fished it out. It was the Chalice. I had broken off the merwoman's head, but her expression had changed to crying. My dad smashed it with the shovel there and then. About a year later, it showed up in our pantry again, though this time headless. It was burned later that night. 2 years ago, just after moving to Australia, I found the head in the middle of my bed. That was the first time I truly cried in years. I have not been that scared in a long time. I don't know about cursed as it didn't cause me any harm, but it was certainly creepy. The first wireless video game controller I ever had was for the PlayStation 2. It had 2 separate battery ports, one in each handle, and I thought it was neat. But then I would notice it would follow me around the house. I'd be playing video games in my bedroom, put the controller on my bed mid-game, head out into the kitchen to get a drink, and find the controller on the counter. Now I'm forgetful, so I chalked it up to me forgetting that I was bringing it with me at first. But then I'd make certain I'd set it aside in my bedroom when I took a break from gaming. Not only would I put it down, but I'd also make a note of it out loud to help reaffirm in my mind that yes, indeed, I had placed that controller on my bed, on my dresser, on the console, etc. And then, not a minute later, it would be waiting for me in whatever room I'd enter. It somehow was moving room to room faster than I was. I told a friend about it, and he didn't believe me. So I proved it to him. I was like, watch this. See this controller? I'm going to place it on my pillow. And that's what I did. I led him out of my bedroom, down the hall, downstairs. And in the main rec room area of the basement? My one and only wireless PS2 controller. I have no idea how it got there. He looked at me, baffled, and quite creeped out. This went on for about a year until the day I accidentally dropped it, and the controller stopped moving on its own. Now it just sits in my dresser drawer. My uncle bought me tarot cards for Christmas when I was 13. I was obsessed with the occult, read, cheesy ghost hunting shows and supernatural. He bought them in Salem, Massachusetts, and the figures on the cards were made to look like cats. Which sounds cute, but those things were fucking terrifying. Everyone I ended up doing a reading for, often over silly shit, had their fortunes come true. Then the nightmares started. I've always had strange dreams, but these were on the next level. I would have dreams about my house being haunted by a dark entity every night. I saw a shadow figure and started hearing odd noises. For reference, I live in a cookie-cutter prefab house built in '97, and my family was the second family to ever own the house. Up until that point, I'd always felt safe and had never seen dark figures or heard odd, unexplainable noises. It all culminated with a vivid nightmare about a faceless, dark entity possessing my entire family. The next morning, I donated the cards to Goodwill. After that, everything stopped. My house, specifically my room, felt physically lighter, on a hokey note. Maybe it was all in my head, but I didn't, and don't plan on testing that theory. In November of both 2015, sophomore in high school, and 2016, junior in high school, I made an attempt at actually fully reading Dreamcatcher by Stephen King. I have one of the original copies, but it's busted to hell due to being read and subjected to my horrifyingly messy backpack in high school. The first year that I made an attempt at reading it, I fell sick. Not just a little average cold, I mean one that lasted painfully for 3 whole months while I was reading the novel. I was so sick that I was coughing hard enough to bruise a few ribs. After I put the book down in January of 2016 for something I received for Christmas, I miraculously recovered. However, November 2016 rolls around, and I experience the same illness again, but not as prolonged as before, as I immediately gave out on it again. I even tried to read it again in 2017, senior in high school, as my friend group was all reading one of our favorite authors for silent reading in English class. However, I gave up after reading Beaver's death because I just loved him too much and I knew once I read about the alien virus, I would fall ill again. And being the kind girlfriend I was, I didn't want to subject my ex to that misery. This fall, I was too busy with my college courses to even subject myself to that, nor did it come to college with me as it wasn't a feel-good novel or part of the Dexter series. It seems that as long as I refuse to read the book or do not read the part about the virus taking over and killing almost everyone, I don't fall ill. This is incredibly frustrating because I really do enjoy King's writing and I want to finish the damned book, But I also don't like being sick. Also, this book has no evidence of mold or anything to cause me to become sick, and I have been highly aware of black mold since it plagued my former high school and caused me and a few teachers to get sick several times. The damn book is just cursed.